Hi everyone, my name is Faiza Meghani and our study topic is preliminary efficacy of price-based contingency management to increase activity levels in healthy adults. It is by Wendy Washington and Kelly Benna. It was published in 2014. The participants of our study include Bryn Skulls and Isma Khan. Bryn will be talking about the purpose of the study and methods of the project. Isma, on the other hand, will talk about the supporting literature and original study along with results of the project. I will state the limitation and conclude the presentation. Over to Isma.
Hi everyone, my name is Isma and I'm going to be discussing about the literature and about a bit about our study. So first of all, just to start off, an estimated of 30% of Americans meet the criteria for obesity, which is a very high number. So as a result, there's been many health organizations and many, people who are managing health are starting to find ways which would help reduce obesity. They're trying to find effective, low-cost interventions to increase physical activity and to treat obesity. So some health organizations have looked at certain strategies to reduce obesity. These include reducing calorie consumption and increasing physical activity. Now, a lot of the research that has looked at managing these behaviors has looked at this theory called which is called contingency management. Now, what is contingency management? It's a three-term contingency, and it's basically operant conditioning, which uses stimulus control and positive reinforcement to change behavior. So it's when there's a systematic application of behavior consequences that would promote change in the behavior. In simpler terms, that ultimately means that there's the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. So whatever follows the behavior is likely to which is called the consequence, is either likely to increase or decrease the behavior. So a lot of the studies that we are looking at have focused on using reinforcement as a consequence to increase and improve the behaviors of reducing weight and increasing physical activity. So it's very important that when looking at interventions for this behavior management, these interventions need to motivate individuals to change their behavior. So interventions that are motivating could include money, privileges, tokens, or points. And studies have shown that contingency management has been effective with obese adults, individuals with muscle or arthritic pain, and even individuals who are developmentally disabled. Now, coming up with a contingency management has some challenges. And one of them is that you need to design a procedure in which the subjects contact reinforcement early in the intervention. Because a study was shown by Donlin et al. In 2008 that early failures to earn reinforcers have been associated with a higher likelihood of disengagement in the treatment. So ultimately, because the individuals in this study did not access reinforcement in the beginning, they gave up and they were not as motivated to continue on with the study. Hence, it is very important to continue to have reinforcement in the study. One way to ensure contact with a reinforcer is to shape behavior towards a desired endpoint gradually. So a step-by-step process. And gradual changes are reinforced. And so if an individual reaches one goal, then according to that goal, they'll get the reinforcement and then they'll follow on with the next criterion until they continue to meet the different ones. And this allows for the frequency of reinforcement to occur and encourages improvement over time. So this has been referred to as a criterion-based or a rank-ordered distribution obtained rates of behavior. So it's criterion 1, criterion 2. It's a step-by-step procedure. And a lot of this research has been written in a book by Higgins, Silverman, and Heel in 2008. They focused on contingency management. And another thing they focused on was that they focused on using contingency management to help individuals who have substance abuse. This study found that when they use contingency management for individuals who abuse drugs, they found that when the participants knew that if they reduced their intake and the positive reinforcement would occur, they reduced and they eventually abstained from drugs. The contingency management procedure used in this study features techniques that have been developed in substance abuse mainly. And another study that looked at substance abuse and the use of contingency management was conducted by Petri et al. 2004, and they focused on reducing cocaine consumption using contingency management. And they found that participants had to weekly provide urine samples to prove that they had reduced their cocaine intake. And based on every level that they had reduced by, they'd get more and more reinforcement. So it's not only about providing continuous reinforcement, it's about even increasing the magnitude of the reinforcement. This has been applied to a study by Byrne et al. In 2012, and they used this concept and they focused on reducing weight loss. It was a weight loss intervention, and they used a prize bank where the participants were able to access a prize based on whether they were following on with their routine. And this study found that developing weight loss programs that foster the development of exercise and self-efficacy enhance the participants' success. So when the participants are feeling more assured that they're getting results based on the gradual reinforcement and increase in self-efficacy, they're more likely to engage in the intervention and be motivated. Based on this study, as this was done on weight loss, this hasn't been conducted on physical activity. So the purpose of our study is to look at whether using a price contingency and contingency management would help individuals to increase physical activity and motivate them. And now Bryn is going to be discussing the purpose of our study.
All right, so Isma talked about this a little bit. The purpose of this study was to determine how effectively prizes, or the chance to earn a prize, reinforced individual exercise behavior. In other words, the question being asked was, will the availability of this particular item inspire participants to increase their exercise? Researchers attempted to answer this question, and in turn, our purpose in replicating this study was to verify their results. The exercise behavior targeted in this study was STEPS, which we defined as the, The exercise behavior targeted in this study was STEPS, which we defined as the motion of placing one foot, right or left, forward, and then bringing the opposite foot forward in sync. Each of these motions contributes to the step count. The step count is the cumulative frequency of these steps. The Argus Health and Calorie Counter is a free smartphone app that was used to record each participant's daily steps throughout the study. This app is compatible with both iPhone and Android devices, so it could be accessed and utilized by all participants. And for the sake of this project, the 3 participants used in the study were the members of our group. Each participant downloaded the app to her smartphone and entered her height and weight to personalize the app's measurement system. This allowed the stride length to be personalized, which ensured feasibility and accuracy of measurement across participants. For example, a tall individual with longer legs would likely have a longer stride than a shorter individual with shorter legs. The app accounted for these differences. Each participant carried her smartphone with her throughout the day, whether she was working, exercising, running errands, in order to collect the total number of steps. The original study was conducted as a single subject ABA reversal design, so we established the same parameters for our experiment. In the original study, each phase lasted 1 week for all participants, regardless of their stability of data. And because we wanted to replicate the original study as closely as possible, each phase of our study also lasted 7 days, or 1 week. During the baseline phases, each participant earned 1 prize draw opportunity per day, based only on whether or not she used the app that day and recorded her daily steps in the group log. During the intervention phase, each participant was presented with the opportunity for additional prize draws if she met a predetermined criteria. This criteria was calculated by taking each participant's step counts for the past 7 days and putting those values in order from least to greatest and choosing the 5th lowest value. So essentially, participants made a list, 1 through 7, with 1 being the least value and 7 being the greatest. And whatever value was at slot 5 was the next day's criterion, or the value that the participant needed to exceed in order to earn an additional prize draw. Each participant was responsible for calculating her own daily criteria. She was also responsible for creating her own prize draws. We chose this method in order to combat issues of proximity and personal motivations. We were also both funding and participating in the experiment, which limited what could be used as reinforcement. Each participant created 100 slips of paper, 50 of which contained motivational praise, and the other 50, which consisted of prizes small, medium, large, that each individual found motivating. These could be things like snacks or gift cards. The prize draws were conducted with replacement unless an individual had earned more than 1 prize per day. So for example, if I earned 2 prize draws on Monday, I would pick my first slip, maybe it was for a $50 card, and then that slip aside before I picked out my second slip. I would not put the $50 gift card slip back in the bowl. However, on Tuesday, both of those prize slips would be re-entered, and I would have just as much of a chance to $50 gift card as I had the previous day. This was done to maintain adequate motivation for the length of the study. In order to ensure treatment fatality during these times, we met frequently via Skype to review our operational definition and address any questions or concerns that we may be having. Each participant was also responsible for installing any updates to the app in as timely a manner as possible to ensure that each participant was using the most up-to-date and accurate version. Inter-observer agreement was measured using an additional step counting app. The Runtastic Step Counter app is also a free app that is compatible with both iPhone and Android, and it functions in much the same way that the Argus app does. Each individual enters her personal information, height and weight, and adjustments are made to accurately measure daily steps. The Runtastic app was used on 5 of the total 21 days. Each participant ran the app and the Argus app simultaneously for 15-minute sessions and then calculated IOA for that. So now Isma will discuss the results of our study.
Okay, so what I'm gonna share my screen so that I can actually guide you through all of our graphs. This is going to be the results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of our graphs. First one will be Brins. So we had a reversal design, which meant that we'd have the baseline, the intervention, and then the second baseline. And ultimately how it works is to see when you withdraw the intervention, does the behavior go back to the original baseline amount or around the same amount? And if it does, and if it's different to the intervention, it means that the intervention had an impact on Bryn had an average of 3,857 steps in baseline 1. So over a span of 7 days, she had that was the average. Then in the intervention, when we had prize draws and we had incentives, we anticipated count. However, Bryn's results show, interestingly, that they went down. Her step count went down to 2,550 on average. And as you can see, the line is very jagged because it went up and went down. And due to the various extremes, the average ended up being 2,550. So in fact, it showed that the intervention was not effective because when the intervention was actually in place, it did not help with the increasing the step count. So it actually reduced the step count versus increased the step count. Then in Faiza's graph, it shows that during baseline, the amount of started off high at about 8,000, 7,000 steps. And then by the end, it went down to about 2,000 steps for the first week in baseline. Intervention, the average drastically went up by 2,000 steps almost to 7,635 steps. So it went from 5,874 to 7,635. So this showed that the intervention definitely motivated Faiza to increase the step count and therefore increased. And then in baseline, when the intervention was taken away, the step count went down, which showed that the intervention did have an impact on the step count and increasing the step count. Similarly, in Isma's graph, it shows that the average during the baseline was 3 high, around 4,000, and then went down to about 2,000 steps. But then in intervention, there was a gradual rise for 2 days, and then there was a drop on the day 11, and then it went back up. And so ultimately, the overall average ended up being 4,693. So there was an increase, which shows that the intervention seemed to have been effective for increasing the step count. And then in baseline 2, the step count went down again, which ultimately highlights the same, that the reversal design worked and the intervention was effective for increasing the step count. Now this page for each participant, the blue arrows indicate that when the intervention was in place, the step count either went down or up, showing the intervention was effective or not. For Bryn, the intervention was not very effective. And in fact, but Faiza, the step count went up in intervention, showing that the intervention was effective. Now, if you look at Bryn's range for all 3 conditions, they're all around 5,000. So generally, a step count was pretty much the same, whether there was intervention or no. But for Faiza, there was a massive in place after baseline 1. The range ended up being 2,452, which means the high value and the low value, there wasn't too much difference because the overall average was higher in the intervention. And for Isma, again, the step 3,000-4,000, but in the intervention, the range increased because the step count increased. So overall, this should just give you an idea of the reversal design, and when the intervention seemed to be effective, the step count went up. However, for Bryn, that wasn't the case. Now I'm going to pass it on to Faiza to discuss the limitations of our.
Thank you, Isma. Now I'll be discussing the limitations of the study. Although, as you heard, the study showed positive effects in the physical activity of me and Isma, however, there were negative effects for Bryn. So there were some limitations involved in the study. First, our study included only 3 adults, which makes the sample size very, very small. The intervention might not work on all age groups. The main influence of a small sample size is the one it has on statistical power. Statistical power refers to the ability of a statistical test based on a sample to show traits that truly exist in the population. A study with low statistical power has a reduced chance of detecting a true effect. But it is less well appreciated that low power also reduces the likelihood that a statistically significant result reflects a true effect. If the sample size declines, the power also declines. Thus, the results might have showed unreliable traits because of sample size. Another limitation. Also, the participants were responsible of giving themselves reinforcement, which makes the intervention less reliable because we were in charge of our own reinforcement. And it's not always a reliable method since we can always reinforce our behavior by not doing as much as we could. If someone else was monitoring our activity, we would have been much more alert and active if someone else was taking data for us and reinforcing us, not ourselves. We would be more engaged and we would be more excited to work for it because we know that someone else is monitoring us and will be getting their praise as well and their social attention. Another limitation was that there was no verification of who was actually wearing the step counter. One could have easily said, yes, I had these many steps, but there's no proof that they were actually wearing the step counter or they had it in their pocket the whole time. One could have asked a more active person to just wear the step counter during intervention phase. Example, if I had a sister who is more active than me, I could have easily asked her to wear my watch or step counter device instead of me and get more steps. So there was no cause to suspect this strategy. We had no way to verify who was actually generating the data. So for future, webcam could be used in order to verify if all participants are actively taking data on their activities or not. And we can send pictures to each other and as a proof that we had this device with us the whole time. Secondly, another limitation was that this intervention did not take into account any other physical activity criteria. For example, swimming, healthy eating, drinking enough water, but only the number of steps were taken into account. It is possible that one of us were active in ways not accurately captured by step counter. For instance, I was more on 2 days, I was more active in swimming or biking, but the step counter unfortunately does not take these things into account, and I would not have an increase in my step count if I did something else compared to increase in the steps. So I feel that if uh, if if the reinforcement was given after a certain achievement of a number of steps per day, some participants also lost weight due to excessive walking because they were just focused on number of steps taken and how much are you walking on a daily basis and how much average would you get in a week. So it was all focused on the number of steps you were taking per day and not on if you're taking enough food consumption or if you are taking enough water to balance it all, because we were not accountable for it. If we were accountable for healthy living or we were accountable for giving out our data, if we had drank 3 liters of water a day or if we did exercise for 15 minutes or for 20 minutes, we were not responsible, we were not accountable to give out that data. We were only accountable to give out number of steps per day we had taken. So I think there should be a complete balance, which should include nutrition balance, healthy eating, healthy living, physical exercise. So future studies should focus on the overall health activity to gain better results in order to get more generalized results instead of getting a more narrow result. Overall, the present study illustrates the preliminary efficacy of a contingency management approach to increasing activity in healthy adults. We have shown that this type of program can be implemented at a reasonable cost using the step counter and implementing price draw strategy. As you saw, that the price draw strategy definitely works as reinforcement and it motivates the adults to work for their goal and work as much as they can to win the desired goal. The current study has presented a novel application of both analysis to ongoing behavior of social importance, which we hope will provide guidance in the development of operant strategies to increase physical activity. Thank you so much.
And I would just like to add that following on from our study, considering that we were only 3 participants, it was quite quite tough to manage differences, etc. However, the results of replicating this study has brought about a novel aspect into contingency management, because contingency management has focused on weight loss so far, but not on practical exercise. If the future research can focus on increasing physical activity, then that would work hand in hand with weight loss, with a healthier lifestyle, and better living. So contingency management with reinforcement combined seems to have proven to be effective. However, due to limitations as discussed, future research needs to be conducted. Thank you for listening.